growing up, because I went to like a private school, the way that I talk is like very proper. And when I went to college, I met this guy from Waimānalo, and he was like, "You're not from Hawaii." And I was like, "What?" And I didn't realize until then, like I feel like kind of sad.
Change of scenery today. We are at Ahiki Acres. We are fighting the elements a little bit. There's sun, there's wind, there's helicopters, so please bear with us. We're a small production. So Haley is a farmer here at her farm, Ahiki Acres. Let's start with, can you tell everyone like what got you into farming? What was that whole journey like for you?
So I never imagined becoming a farmer. Growing up, I always wanted to become like a doctor, go into the medical field. Trying to remember why that was like the goal is hard. Maybe because, you know, everyone painted doctors as being very successful.
Right.
And when I ended up going to college, I went away to school in upstate New York. I was not doing well in biology, and I was just like, oh, I need a different path. So I ended up studying chemical engineering.
Right.
And thought, oh, I could pursue my interest in sustainability and do research in alternative energy. I was in the labs a lot, like all day long. I was reaching graduation, and just the thought of doing more school, like grad school, was daunting. My friend from high school called me up and was like, hey, I'm gonna go home to start a farm. And I was like, what? Like, that's possible? But I kind of was like, okay, I have no experience in farming. And he's like, oh, there's this program called Go Farm where you can learn how to become a small farmer. And I kind of banked it all on that. I was super nervous to call my parents and be like, hey, thank you so much for helping me go to college, but I want to come home and become a farmer now. Not to my surprise, but they were just like, oh, that's fine. Like, we totally support that.
They're just chill in general. Like,
yeah.
So you weren't like freaking out, being like, oh, they're gonna
I think the
be
pressure was like
disappointed.
myself.
Right.
And kind of the guilt of like that they worked so hard to pay for me to go to these really good schools, like going to private school and then going to a university. But I'm really grateful that they're really supportive of it.
And I remember we were talking like before this, you were saying you felt like you were called back home. Was there something that happened, or what was your thought process? Because I feel like I went through something similar to picking film.
I didn't really come to that realization until about a year ago, even though I've been farming since 2019. I guess the whole thought process behind that was, growing up, I really wanted to get out of Hawaii. I think myself and a lot of the friends I was growing up with, we were just like, oh, there's so much more possibilities out there. Hawaii seems so small. And I wanted to like make a change on a large scale. But then after farming and being in the soil, I realized like I could make a really big contribution here, and there is so much more possibility for me here, I feel like, than being away. So I was actually at a panel last year, and the topic was talking about like advancements in technology in agriculture and the benefits of like vertical farming, indoor farming. And then I just had this sudden wave of passion, and I was just like, no, working in the soil is like what makes farming desirable for me, and like being connected to the land and the community. And you know, coming from a science background, I totally love technology, and I totally think that vertical farming is beneficial, especially for like urban settings.
Right.
But I don't think it should take over, you know, in the soil agriculture, like the incorporation of drones and more machinery. I was just listening to a podcast about having these robots just like harvest everything. And I could see how that could help on the large scale, but losing that human element makes me really sad.
Yeah.
And I think that connection is like why I love farming.
There is like a convenience aspect to technology, and I want to be able to use that. But like you said, it's like if we keep moving in that direction and we completely lose that human touch, I don't know what else is going to be lost in the process.
But my goal is to do a patch of corn here by the end of the summer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I'm trying to do some more experimental crops, like this shiso here, but it doesn't look great. So like ideally, these are supposed to be more red, but the heat is making them turn green. The smell smells really good.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Like ume salt.
Oh, this is how you make it. That's the color.
There's my partner, Matt.
Hello.
He is the brains behind all things. He's really good at problem solving, fixing things. As soon as something breaks, he fixes it. Yeah.
I want to know what your childhood was like growing up, and if there's one thing that you identified more as, or one that you lean more towards, or...
Yeah, I think because I'm 3/4 Japanese, I've identified more as Japanese growing up. A lot of the traditions at home too, and food traditions, I feel like we're more Japanese. My dad is the cook at home and he's full Japanese. And so, yeah, I think that influenced me a lot. And then I went to Iolani for high school. I can't remember exactly why I didn't embrace my Hawaiian heritage. I just remember in elementary school, I just really wanted to go to Iolani. My mom was like, why don't you try out for Kamehameha? Why don't you do like the Kamehameha, I think it's like the scholars or like summer program where you go camping, which at like now I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds so much fun.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know why I never embraced it. Maybe because I am only like 1/16 Hawaiian. I just didn't identify as it. And I didn't have many friends that were Hawaiian. The way that I talk is like very proper.
I see.
And when I went to college, I met this guy from Waianae, and he was like, you're not from Hawaii. And I was like, what? And I didn't realize until then, like, I feel like kind of sad. Actually, my dad like speaks more pidgin than me, even though he's full Japanese. A part of me is just like, I wish I could be like that. Like, especially in like when I meet people, I want to like get to that level of more like connection.
Right.
But when I talk differently, I feel different. Or yeah. So just to start off, I'm trying to use the Kaulana Mahina or Hawaiian or moon calendar more to influence like how we do things at the farm. Fishermen and farmers would use the moon calendar to kind of plan out on what days they'll like plant stuff and what days they'll prep. And for me, it's been good because this current like mindset of just always working and grind culture has been something I've been battling with. And on the moon calendar, there's days where it's just rest, like don't farm, because that's just the way of like, it's like not a good day to be planting or not a good day to be prepping with like with the moon. It's still something I'm trying to fully understand, but I think that idea of rest is like connects to like this indigenous knowledge and wisdom.
So with your Japanese background and your Hawaiian background, was there any connection to farming? Growing
up in Waimānalo, I actually live on what used to be ag land, and my grandpa and his parents used to have an orchid nursery. Unfortunately, I think there was like a natural disaster that like ruined one of their nurseries, and then also just like some like the changes in trade and like orchids starting to be grown in other countries for cheaper. So their business shut down. But before that, like on my dad's side too, his family came from Japan and also were farmers. I know it's like one side of my family has a rice farm in Japan right now.
Oh my God.
So I think on that side of my family, or like my Japanese lines, have influenced my like desire to grow plants and stuff.
I think one common thing for farmers, and I think in Japan, maybe everywhere, but I think Japan and Hawaii, their connection to the land is like a huge theme. And I want to know, like, how would you describe your connection to the land? Yeah.
Oh, I guess this kind of goes back to being called back. And yeah, the soil being an extension of myself. And I kind of like, comes back to that idea of like malama aina and caring for the land and Mother Earth. Like we're all related and connected, and that's why we're so focused on regenerating the land and building the soil so that it can still be farmed for years to come, versus traditional agriculture is just destroying the land. Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint, but something spiritual happens when I'm working out here, and I think it's still something I'm trying to figure out. what exactly is happening, but yeah.
Do you feel hopeful when you think about the future, or do you feel like not a lot of young people around us are into farming? And
you know, that's one of my goals, is to show the younger generation that this is a possibility. You know, I never thought it was a possibility in school. So I even go back to Iolani and I'm like, this is a possible, you know, route to go. You may not make tons of money, but you can make enough to support yourself. And obviously it's hard and gruesome sometimes, but I think I speak for my partner and I, like, we just love what we do. I realized, I was like, oh, what is the meaning of life? And I think, like, relationships are a huge part of it.
Right.
And I wouldn't have came to that realization if I had just stayed in the lab.